And a lot of men out there have opted to take the option to say, you know what, man, I'm not gonna get married because of what they could lose financially, property they can use, or sometimes what happens is when a lady is married to somebody and they get a divorce, and you know what, the man has to keep on paying alimony. He has to keep on paying alimony until that woman gets married. And he said, why should I put myself in a situation like this? Why? Because the thing is, I'm going to opt out. And see these robots behind me, they say, hey man, you know what, rather than do that, rather than get married, because during a pandemic, what happened is people started to become isolated. They started to become isolated, and they started to live in their own little worlds. Okay, and they said, you know what? Facebook came up with an idea, and I'm pretty sure somebody else came up with the idea. They said, you know what we're gonna do is we're gonna make some glasses and Apple and all these other groups to put over somebody's eyes. And the thing is, they can live in the mega universe. So, in other words, once you get home from work, of putting up with what you putting up with from your boss and all that, you know what you say, hey, you know, hey man, I don't have to deal with this anymore. You know what, man? I'm going to not get high. I'm gonna put on my glasses. I'm gonna go in a comatose space. And I'm going to mega universe for people that do not know. This is a universe that you go to once you put glasses on. Once you go put glasses on. And hey, Miss Dahlia, how are you doing? Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
I'm doing great. And let me tell y'all something. This lady has a great show called Latino Spirit that comes on Can Television in Chicago. But she comes on, I can't say Twitter, she comes on X too. And what we're talking about, thank you, sister, for accepting the invitation. And you know let me recap. Okay, recap is we're going to talk about men that are, that I said, what, a lot of men that I talk to,
Hmm.
understand something in my demographics. Okay, they said that they do not want to marry women. They would prefer a robot. They would prefer a robot over a woman. And let me tell y'all something. The divorce rate. The divorce rate is so high. Let me ask you something, Miss Dahlia. Has it been talk in your community? Because I'm in the African American community. Okay.
Sure.
Has it been talk in your community or in general about men saying, damn, you know what? I do not want to marry a woman. I want to marry a robot because when I get home, I don't want to hear, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm being animated though. But
No, I think in the Latino community is very different. Men are very much, it's a very family oriented community.
mhm,
So you have that kind of structure of like a mother, a father, and the children.
mhm,
And so it's not like and the way that the men are raised, they're, and even like looking at the perspective of the culture
yes.
and the religion is that they really highly honor women,
Mhm,
like because this is very interesting. In the religion, even though it's Catholic, they have La Virgen de Guadalupe, our Virgin Mary, or
mhm,
Guadalupe,
mhm,
which is Virgin Mary. But I was noticing it's how Mexican men, or especially because those are the ones I interact with as well,
mhm, mhm.
they view the women in hard regards. That doesn't mean that none of the other stuff happens, that we're working on things. But yes, I did do some research though
Oh,
on on the information, and I share some of the
yeah,
data
yeah.
that
Go
I
ahead.
came
Go ahead.
across.
Go ahead.
Okay, so in comparing women and men in general,
Mhm,
um, 13% versus 9% are open. As far as 13% men are actually more open to that idea than women in general.
Yeah.
And I'm estimating that this is here in the US. I don't think, because it's a very new thing.
Hmm.
Also, in young men, 28% versus 22%. Okay.
Yes.
And I think that is here in US or Western cultures. But I
Hmm.
mean Western culture, I'm saying US because I don't, like I said, in the Mexican community, I seriously, they would laugh at you. They probably would laugh at you because it's just the way the culture is like women, we're very strong, and they love that guy. I guess they love that. And they I don't think they could, they are thinking in that regard of replacing a physical person, human being,
Yeah.
with just an object, or object that looks like women. Also, too, I did research on Mr. Elon Musk. They said that they will have well, posted a picture of him on a date, but it was not true. It's not true. He
Hmm.
didn't go on a date with the robot, but
Hmm.
somebody did in July, and they were saying, oh, he went on a date with them, with a robot. But it actually in 2000, he's claiming, Mr. Musk is claiming that by 2040 there will be more robots than
Yeah.
humans. That I'm not sure. Depends, because I'm thinking like the cell phones. Look,
Hmm.
I'll tell you, it depends on where you are in the world, because some cultures are very much like, hey, look, we're happy with this and we won't let this go, and
Hmm.
we won't replace it with this, but we will enhance it and bring it in and learn about it, but not substitute it for a real thing, for the real beings.
Yes.
So he says, but he's claiming that by 2040 that there will be more robots. And then another thing that I was looking into when they posted in that about him in a date with a with a robot. Actually, the robot, what is the name of it? I thought I wrote it
It's
down.
called Optima.
Yes.
Optima.
Yes, and it's
Optima.
coming 2025. Oh,
Yes.
but look, I also looked into Japan and China and what they do. So it's about 30,000 to get one of these, humanoids.
Hmm.
And then I looked into, like, here in the U.S., there was one gentleman when his wife passed away. What he did, because he missed his wife, he replaced it. He replaced her with a
Hmm.
humanoid. But I think I was asking myself more the question, and thank you for having me on the show, the question of why would men, and what type of men, and what type of
You know
upbringing.
what? Why he's getting his audio together? I like to ask you something. The divorce rate. It is known,
Oh,
it is known that the divorce rate is over 50%. Okay.
yes.
So most people when they get married, they say to love and to honor and to death do us part. The people are not doing that. They're not doing that. They're not doing it. They are not doing it. Hey Lonnie, can you hear me?
The question is, why are they not doing it?
I'm saying is I'm asking the reason is that they're not doing it is because once people get frustrated, angry, or upset, they say, "Hey, I'm out of this. I'm out of this. So why not marry a robot? Why not? Why not?
Obedience,
Why not?
obedience.
Why
Okay,
not? Go ahead.
so
Go
there
ahead.
you go.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think when you ask the question, why there's such a high divorce rate, because of control and also traumas and upbringings that show up in the marriage,
Hmm.
that kind of manifest themselves into marriage, and then you're not expecting, and then you're like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this, so let me throw the towel in. But I
Hmm.
think it has to do with the fact that a lot of people are not willing to address the deep roots of certain behaviors, whether they're destructive, non-destructive, or they're helping in the marriage.
Hmm.
So I think the 50%, it could be brought down. I think if people before they get married, they go through like a serious discernment, is this the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with? If
Well, let
not,
me well let me
but
show you something. What people are doing.
out of every 2 marriages, 50% of people get divorced.
Where?
Dat.
In the United States of America. It does not exist anywhere else. It exists, but not the way it exists here. It's so easy. They have an argument.
Yeah.
Let's get divorced.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Work it out.
No, seriously, awesome. Old people, sometimes they rip off the Band-Aid and they say what needs to be said.
A lot of people want to come back and be like, you don't know why people get divorced, and that's true, we don't. But statistically speaking, the number one reason for divorce in America is lack of commitment.
Like our
Okay.
elder, the old timer said, he said, you're talking about America, right? Those statistics, half of the
I
marriages
did.
in
Well, I mean, what do you think about that lack of communication? Now, let me ask you something. You say that's okay, lack of communication. Hey, man, I marry Optima, a robot. This the way I want her. She learns from the algorithms what I like and what I don't like. I mean, hey. Can you expand on that?
Well, I think they say commitment, because I think that when he was saying the lack of commitment,
Breaking up, brother. Go ahead.
I think what he said is that the lack of commitment, or what she found out was the lack of commitment. And I think what it is that the commitment that people make, it's normally like, because we are raised very selfish here in the US. I'm telling you, we're raised to be very selfish and to just think about ourselves. Like, hey, what is in the best interest of me, not in the best interest of my family. So, and then I experience in different cultures as well, as I've traveled all over the world. And you know that in different cultures is different. Now, however, also that percentage is also in the Middle East, in the country that I was living in, because it's very high in that regard, is because it's like pretty much arranged marriages still to some extent. And then they also now have opened up
dates anymore, okay? And a lot of men say, why should I get married? Because the woman has so much to benefit. You go to divorce court, okay? You got to pay, okay? The child usually goes with the mother, okay? Here it is. The man has to pay alimony for as long as the woman, as long as the woman is not married. A lot of men are saying, I don't want to lose my property. Let me marry a robot. Can you comment on that?
Well, no, I think you're wrong in that regard, because I'll tell you one true story. If you go to court and the bread taker is not the man and is the woman has to pay alimony. Did you know that in America?
I know that the majority of the time.
But in the case of my family,
the majority of the time, it is the man that has to pay alimony. And a lot of men are saying, hey, I can get Optima, and I get home, my food is cooked, the water is warm, the house is clean, and the laundry is. A lot of men are starting to say that. I don't know if you agree with that or
not. Here in US, I maybe, but not in every country. Thank God.
Not yet.
No, maybe in the US, maybe because again, I tell you, Clifton, in our country, in the US, we're raised very selfish, very like me, myself, and I. It's not like community. It's not like, and even before, even when I was growing up, it was a little bit more community than what I experience nowadays with the young kids. It's more me, myself, and I. And you can see it because also they normally couples bring in one kid, two children, three, but no more than that. And therefore, I do agree with Mr. Musk as far as the decline in numbers of children. And I mean, I think that is the case here in America, but not in India, not in Mexico. Well, Mexico is right there. But I think it has to be because the cost of, financing a child is very costly in here in America. So going back to men thinking, oh, I can just get home and not, this is new technology.
Okay, go ahead, sister.
Well, I was just saying that, okay, humanoids are not phones, right? I mean, these are phones that we're utilizing, right, to communicate. And I'll tell you, when I traveled to Sweden back I was in the 90s. It was in the 90s.
Hmm.
Um, in Sweden, they already had cell phones, while here in US we had the beepers. Remember those little things,
Yes.
that the beepers? Okay, Sweden, they were walking with the old cell phones, the big ones, the ones that were like that.
Hmm.
So I think it's gonna take some time before we humans start acquiring those robots. 30,000 is not little. 30,000 is quite a bit. I mean, I'd rather buy a car. If I'm between a car and
No,
a humanoid that's gonna be cleaning my house, thank you. I'll just take the car, right?
a lot of
Because
men, a lot of men don't feel that way, okay? Because the price, you say 30,000, but I thought I saw the last
30
price
to 50.
where Elon said would be 25,000, and like an automobile, you'd be able to rent, lease, and buy. But the divorce rate, okay. Let me ask you something. As a woman, that's not sort of understandable to you that a man, I'm not going to generalize and say all women are like this. Okay.
Right.
I'm not going to say that. But they don't want to come home and, hey, nah, where you been at? Where you been at? Why? How come you don't? You know what? If you have a device, something that is learning from the algorithms, okay, it is learning what you like, what you like and don't want to talk about, what turns you off. You don't feel that there's going to be men that are going to, a lot of men are going to opt for that, because in a society where a pandemic happened, we got isolated. Okay, so we get used to being sort of alone, but you don't think that a lot of men are going to opt for that, saying, you know what, I don't want to put up with this. I don't want to take a chance of getting in a situation, and I have to pay alimony. I have to lose her. You don't think this? You don't think that a lot of men are going to do this? A lot of men are.
Well, the first robot, it came in 1972.
Mhm,
It was from, I believe, it was in 1972 in Japan.
mhm.
And this is also going, I was having a little conversation with a friend, and as far as again, going back to this, with men up for humanoid versus a real female, um I think there's a possibility, because they're so detached and their function. I'm still reading the men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Yeah.
I'm still reading it, but I think it has to do with the fact that, look, they were here since 1972, and they've been developing it, and they've been improving it, and they've been working on it. However, I think there's elements that are gonna be missing, that I don't know that a humanoid would fulfill for a man, for males. I don't think so. But I mean, evidently there's other kind of means that men have, or in women they've opt for, as far as satisfaction, in their
Well,
private lives.
the robot can do that these days.
Right,
I'm
right.
saying, I'm
But we
saying
already have had that. Like, that's been an option for a long time, as far as other, objects that they might get for their pleasure, whatever, fulfilling of private, or whatever their private needs are.
Mhm.
But it's still that these are not as common as, like, obviously. And you're right, men have a harder time. I was talking to a friend who's like, okay, men have a harder time finding somebody to be intimate with versus a female. You can just pretty much anywhere, everywhere, right? But for a male, it's harder. And I think that might be the point where, Clifton, I might agree with you in that regard. But I'm not, of course, we don't have enough data, and this is pretty much new technology. And just looking at the technology that, like I said, that we've had for a while, as far as, men fulfilling their needs or women fulfilling their needs, they're still, again, it's not there as far as numbers. You know what I mean?
But let me ask you something. And being in the field you in, we both know that technology gets better and better and better with open AI. Is that not true?
With OpenAI, well, you can improve things for sure.
Mhm. Okay.
But are they is it genuine?
Yeah. No, I'm not saying if it's genuine. I'm saying is with open AI, okay, that the humanoids or the robots are going to improve over the future. Would you deny that or just disagree with that?
Okay. There's a comment right here that came through, and it says, I think one of the points of view that you guys should look into is the workforce, especially the urban community, where our crime rate is very high. And imagine one of these AI robots that is bulletproof. So that's a very interesting point. Very interesting. Imagine that. I mean, and there's a couple movies. Wife Like. There's a movie that's called Wife Like, and they came out, and I kind of like saw the preview to it, and
I
basically,
robot.
yeah, a wife robot, and the story. At the end, you get to know that the male, the guy, is the one who actually wanted this woman, and for that reason he went and went to the extent of getting a robot for her,
Here, sister.
yeah. So I mean, this is a good point in the high crime rates. Imagine if one of these uh all of a sudden gets a little cuckoo and goes on a, as it is, we already have a very tough in some of
Let
our
me
areas,
let,
like
let me
our
restru-
city.
let me restructure the question. I'm saying with open AI, with technology advances and the tendency to get better and better, and nothing is perfect. So we're looking at the early stages of this. So with AI, open source, this technology will get better. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, that definitely. I mean, technology gets better. I mean, that has been the human. That's our human nature. I
Mhm.
mean, from the fact that we have homes, we have computers, we have various means of communications,
Mhm.
communicating with each other. Definitely, definitely, our quality of life, and that's one of the things that I actually wanted to mention as far as what Mosque is going to be doing with Vivek, as far as dojo. I did a thesis study in the fact that technology, how it actually facilitates and improves the quality of life of humans when we utilize it and facilitate it. So, and I do agree it will, but I think there's the element of the human part that is missing. And there's a couple more comments right here, but yeah. Do
Okay.
you want?
Back to what I'm
Oh,
saying.
can I read the comment right here?
Go
Will a
ahead.
man marry humanoids? Yes. In Japan, where the depression and lonely rate is very high, it is true. So I do agree that there are men who are very lonely and who are very depressed, and they would opt for a humanoid. I understand that, and they're also very deprived,
Mhm.
very like shy. They don't have the social skills to communicate with women, and not only with women in general in their environment, and you can see it.
Mhm.
And so it says a lot of men have turned to AI relationship. And
Yeah.
it's true. In Japan, I was looking about that. In Japan and in China and those Asian countries, by using AI relationship dating apps, which is here in America, the one we use is Match.com, but you still meet a human person. And
Mhm.
over there, I think that they have, because of the culture, and they're isolated and they are deprived, that they've turned into AI and to these women, and these are humanoids, and that's where the technology has developed further versus here. But it says, but again, more regular people who was raised with men and women. So this is like he's saying, that are raised with men. Okay, will always choose actual life organic partner versus a humanoid partner. So I agree with this person. So if you have a
Man,
person,
you said always, and that's a generalization.
well, no. It says right here, we'll always choose the person. That's the person making the comment, which I agree with that person, because when you have a mother and father and a family structure, that's what you're gonna emulate. And in the case of Japan, which is true, the men are raised very lonely, very deprived, very alone, and without, also in the Middle East too, they are raised without like the social skills, social emotional skills needed to interact with women normally. Like, you will be like, oh my god, this guy doesn't know how to behave well because they are not raised that way, because they're very deprived.
Let,
And
let me
so,
let me say something.
yeah,
For the person in the chat room that put that question out there, you know what? There's research I've done. There are men that are waiting to be able to have the ability to they make it lawful to be able to marry an android and or a robot. So to say always a man will always choose a woman over a robot, I I don't see that as factual, but and when you spoke of jobs, that was one reason why they're talking about coming out with universal pay. People are going to lose their jobs. People more jobs to be developed. But go ahead.
no, but we're no, the comment was always when they have the structure of the solid family model of a mother and a father, physical mother and a father, and a solid foundation of a family. And I can say that is the case because in the cultures that I've been, especially the Mexican culture, that is the case. You still, no matter if they divorce,
Mhm.
the mother and father are still part of the family structure of that child. So I do agree with this person saying they would tend to not want to replace a real human being because that's what they've been exposed. Where in the culture of the Japanese, which I have very little, I mean, of course I've done research, I have very little knowledge, but in the Middle East I sure know what it was like. And
I, I, I
when
would, you
men,
know what, I would disagree because when we make a generalization and say 100% of Latinos, Hispanics will marry, be traditional family. No, there's always the exception to the rule. To me, that's like saying 100% of the black people eat watermelon, and that's not true. But
no,
go
I'm
ahead.
not saying, what I'm saying, and if they have had, listen, the part that I think you're not getting there, that I'm trying to communicate, is the part that is if they see a traditional, if they experience that traditional life from childhood, like, oh, mother, father, and then most likely, I guess, okay, instead of saying always, most likely they're going to say, hey, why am I gonna have a humanoid when I can have a real human? Because they have the social, emotional, developed interactions to communicate with the opposite sex, with women, or women with men. Because I'm telling you, when a child is not, and I can say this because I'm a teacher, and this is what I've seen with the children. When a child doesn't have, though, has no model in their family structure or in their environment, not even family, but in their environment, of how to communicate their feelings, emotions, interact, I tell you, it's very challenging for them. And then you see kids with tantrums, and you're like, okay, you're trying to figure out where is this coming from, because nobody has taught them, and they have not had any models to emulate that kind of behavior. But when they do have, for example, when they see the mom and the dad hugging, loving,
Yeah.
then they can see, and they're like, oh, this is normal, nurturing, the arguments, healthy arguments, or like a disagreement to agree that, hey, we're not gonna. But now we're like, when you see, when you have kids that they come and punch everybody, and then I had to figure it out, why is this kid punching everyone and thinks
What your grandfather was doing. Any message for your grandchildren? Great.
happen to have known someone who was in the NSA.
Okay.
All right? And they don't know what they'll know now. I've been in their building with him. Did you understand?
Yes, sir.
And they
Some people don't know what NSA
the National Security Administration. And when I walked up in there and they got video screens. I mean, from here to 35th Street.
Those street cameras, right?
Those are the screens like you watch on a computer.
Right. Right.
All right? They got a room where they listen to conversations all around the country. All right? That's why I can say what I said. But they let me go because he was an important person. And they figured if he was pregnant, it was all right. All right? They made a mistake, but I never forgot that.
Well, wait a minute, all the while.